All right, so question number 16. So question number 16 is talking about specifically what? What is it asking the person?
They're asking for whether or not you were physically injured or if you felt that your life was in danger.
But for what?
Misstates number 16.
Sustained.
Okay, I thought you meant that group.
Well, no. What I'm asking.
Yes.
What I'm asking is that those group of questions.
Yes.
What are they asking you specifically
They're-
about?
Objection, which group of questions like that?
Dr. Samuels, number 16, when it asks, were you physically injured, is it speaking of a specific traumatic event?
Yes, the
Okay.
one indicated in 14.
All right. So the group of questions, is it talking about the traumatic event from number 14?
Correct.
And also, is it talking about the traumatic event from number 15?
Yes, they're all talking about the same event.
Okay. So when Jodi is answering these questions, she is, according to her answers that she's given already, this traumatic event that she is answering occurred sometime between 6 months to 3 years of the taking of this test.
That's correct.
And is June 4th, 2008 within that time frame?
Yes.
Okay, so with regard to question number 16, were you physically injured? What's her answer?
She answered yes.
And with regard to number 17, was someone else physically injured? What's the answer?
Yes.
And do we know from what she told you, what she says actually happened on June 4th, 2008, what did she have some injuries?
Yes.
Like a foundation at the time of the test or at a different time?
I think my question was pretty specific.
Overruled.
Yes, she did.
Okay, and with regard to number 17, was someone else injured on June 4th, 2008?
Yes.
With regard to number 18, did you think that your life was in danger? What did she answer?
She answered yes.
And according to what she says actually happened on June 4th, 2008, did she feel, in later conversations that she had with you, did she feel that her life was in danger?
Yes.
Objection, mischaracterization, lack of foundation, and speculation because of the answer to 14.
Approach. May continue.
Okay, Dr. Samuels. I'm going to try and make this more clear, okay? With regard to questions numbers 16 through 21.
Yes,
Okay. Let's first talk about how Jodi answered the test.
sure.
Okay. So with regard to 16, did she answer yes?
Yes,
And with regard to 17, did she answer yes?
yes,
And with regard to 18, did she think that her life was in danger? Did she answer yes?
yes,
And with regard to 19, did she think that someone else's life was in danger? Did she answer yes?
yes,
And with regard to 20, did you feel helpless? Did she answer yes?
yes,
And with regard to did you feel terrified? Did she answer yes?
yes,
All right, so all of these answers at the time she took the test, she answered yes.
correct.
All right, now I want to talk to you about what happens, specifically what she has told you after she disclosed to you what she says actually happened on June 4th of 2008, okay?
Okay,
Based on what she told you that she says actually happened on June 4th, 2008, was she physically injured?
yes,
Was someone else physically injured?
yes,
Did she think that her life was in danger?
yes,
Did she think that someone else's life was in danger?
yes,
Did she feel helpless?
yes,
And did she feel terrified?
yes,
And based on that information, because of the things that she told you about what she says actually happened on June 4th of 2008, had you given this test to her after she disclosed this information to you, based on the information that she's given you, would these answers have still been yes?
Objection, speculation as to what her answer. Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Based on the facts that she talked to you about during her interview, all of those answers were yes. Is that correct?
correct.
All right, let's move on to question number 22. Oh, before I do that, if all of these answers are answered yes, does that, whether she's given the test before she discloses or whether she's given the test after she discloses?
Objection, mischaracterization as to disclose.
Overruled. Finish your question.
Whether this test is given before she tells you what she says actually happened on June 4th, or whether this test is given after she tells you what actually happened on June 4th. If the answers remained yes before and yes after, would it have changed her score at all?
No,
Okay. Let's talk about question number 22. All right. Let's first talk about what her answers were at the time of the test. Okay?
yes,
All right. Number 22, she said that the question is, or the statement, having upsetting thoughts or images of the traumatic event that came into your head when you didn't want them. Is that intrusive thoughts?
yes,
Okay. And was her answer 4?
yes. No, her answer was 3.
Oh, 3, I'm sorry.
3.
And is that 5 or more times a week?
Yes,
And we see the key up at the top?
yes,
Okay. And number 23, what was having bad dreams or nightmares about the traumatic event? What was her answer?
not at all or only one time.
Okay, so that's 0.
Yes,
If she was trying to make things sound worse than they really were, generally speaking, if somebody was trying to make things sound worse than they really were, would it be better to answer number 3?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
yes, it would elevate their score. And in many of the clients I've worked with claim nightmares, but it's not likely that they're actually having them. But there's no way to check. And so this is a score where you could exaggerate if your intent was to skew the results in your favor.
Okay. And with regard to the way Jodi answered, she actually answered 0, the lowest possible answer.
Correct.
With regard to question number 24, reliving the traumatic event, acting or feeling as if it was happening again, what did Jodi answer?
Once a week or less, once in a while.
Okay, and is that score number 1?
Yes,
if generally speaking, if a person was trying to make it elevate their scores, could they answer number 3 on this one?
They could have.
And is there any way to double check that?
Not really.
And if somebody answered 3, would that have elevated the score?
Yes.
With regard to question number 25, feeling emotionally upset when the person's reminded of the traumatic event, what did Jodi answer?
She answered 2.
Okay, which is 2 to 4 times a week?
Yes.
And experiencing, number 26, experiencing physical reactions when she's reminded of the event. What was her answer?
Her answer was a 3.
And is that something that you actually noticed? Did you notice physical reactions when in speaking with Jodi during the times that you met with her?
Yes.
And what was the physical reaction that
Well,
you
the
noticed?
most obvious was the shaking of the hand.
Okay. Number 27, trying not to think about it or having feelings about the traumatic event. What was Jodi's answer?
She said a 3.
Okay. And is there any evidence that she was trying not to think about it?
Well, she created this alternative reality, and at the time she was telling that story. And so in a sense, she was in denial to keep an emotional distance from the events of that day.
Okay. Number 28, trying to avoid activities, people or places that remind you of the traumatic event. How did she answer?
She answered 1.
And is that consistent with where she was currently living at the time this test is given?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
At the time where she was living when this test was given, was she able to visit anybody
No.
who had to do with this traumatic event?
No.
Number 29, not being able to remember an important part of the traumatic event. What was her answer?
Her answer was 1.
Okay. And that 1 is not at all or only one time.
Right.
Okay. And with regard to number 30, having much less interest or participating much less often in important activities, her answer was number 2.
Yes.
And with regard to 31, feeling distance or cut off from people around you. What was her answer?
Her answer on 31 was 3.
Okay, is that the highest that she can say?
Yes.
And what about number 32, feeling emotionally numb?
Also scored a 3.
And what about number 3, feeling as if her future plans or hopes would not come true?
She scored a 3 there as well.
And in speaking with her, in the times that you met with her during all your evaluations, did she express feelings consistent with 31, 32, and 33?
Yes, she did.
With regard to 34, having trouble falling or staying asleep, what was her answer?
Her answer was 2.
Okay, and in the times that you've met with her, did she report having problems sleeping?
Yes, she did.
And was that something different for her?
She was a sound sleeper prior to the incident. And then, since coming to jail, which was after the incident, she reported having difficulty sleeping.
Okay, and was it more so just being more than just being in a different place?
She was a bit hypervigilant.
Sustained.
Did she talk to you about why she had trouble sleeping?
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
She became sensitive to the sounds of the jail. It's a fairly noisy place, so she became very sensitive to those noises, and we awakened repeatedly through the night.
Okay, and was she sensitive to noises when she was sleeping before?
She indicated that she was a heavy sleeper.
Okay. Feeling irritable or having fits of anger, number 35, what was her answer?
1.
Okay, so once a week or so?
Yes.
Having trouble concentrating, number 36, what was her answer?
3.
Being overly alert for checking things around you, things like that, what was her answer?
2.
And being jumpy or easily startled. Being jumpy or easily startled, number 38.
She scored 3.
Okay, so, and is that something that is consistent with the things that she talked to you about, how she felt?
Yes.
Question number 39, how long has she experienced these problems? What was her answer?
More than 3 months or 3.
Okay, and at the time that you gave her this test, is that consistent with experiencing these problems? Is that consistent with the date of the original trauma being June 4th of 2008.
Yes.
And how long after the traumatic event did these problems begin? And what was your answer?
Less than 6 months.
Okay. All right, to the very end. All right, and so on questions 41 through 49, is the person supposed to answer just a simple yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, and if these things have been interfered with?
Then, yes, then they would likely be interfered with most of these items.
Okay, so did she answer yes to all of these except for one area?
Yes.
And what was the one area?
That's number 45, schoolwork.
Okay, was she in school at the time?
She was taking some classes, yes.
Okay, but I mean, she wasn't actually attending a school, was she?
No, these were classes that were given at the jail.
Okay, so the only thing, so basically, is her answers 41 through 49, are they having problems in these particular areas? Is that consistent with what was going on in her life at the time that she took this test?
Yes, she was incarcerated.
And at any time when she took this test, did you ever talk to her about the reason that you're giving her this test, your hypothesis?
No.
Did you ever let on that you were testing her for post-traumatic stress and here's the test?
No, I did not.
And is there, and I know what's coming in evidence for the jury to see is stapled together in Exhibit 540. I know it's the entire packet, but that's not what Jodi got.
That's correct.
Based on your testing, this PDS test, well, let me ask you this. Based on what information do you make your ultimate diagnosis?
I base the information primarily on my interviews, the crime scene photographs and descriptions, the interviews with family members, police reports, emails, text messages, and the psychological tests, the two that I administered. Synthesized together, reinforced my initial hypothesis that she was at the time suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder.
And if her post-traumatic stress simply by experiencing the trauma, what occurred on June 4th of 2008, does that necessarily mean a person will ultimately suffer from post-traumatic stress?
No, not everyone who suffers from an acute stress situation will develop post-traumatic stress disorder.
But in what you saw with regard to Jodi, did you see the criteria to support post-traumatic stress?
I did.
Thank you very much, Doctor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a recess until 3:45. So you will have until 3:45. Please remember the admonition, you are excused.
Please stand for the jury.
The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. We are at recess, counsel, if I could see with the bench. Okay, I've got some more questions here. I'm going to give these, prosecutor, I'm going to give these to you so you can go get started.
Okay.
An update about.
Could you send Valerie back to the room so I don't, in case I forget?
Yeah.
We'll be back in the room with, because I don't want to, I might forget,
Okay.
so.
And we'll have her bring these back to you after
Valerie
it's finished. Okay.
out or something. and she-
Okay. You can step down.
I was gathering my goods.
Okay. Don't gather too much because you're gonna be back. Okay.